Part 70. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 691. Two pieces of news, one is reasonable and the other is unexpected. The filming period for Disney's Zootopia lasted several years, but most of the time was not in front of the camera, but included pre-preparation, material collection, post-processing, production and publicity. The real shooting stage only took up the entire time. Less than 20%. 1 minute on stage, 10 years of hard work off stage, 1 minute of shooting, 4 to 5 minutes of pre-preparation and post-processing serve it, so the quality of the film is always maintained at a high level. When the inspection team entered the crew, the preliminary preparations had been completed, and the film was actually in the middle and late stages. It was natural for some members of the inspection team to return after completing their studies. CAI Liming will continue to take the remaining members of the inspection team to stay at Disney to learn post-production. The people who came back were led by the little fairy Li Wanting. What surprised Su Ming was that there was also an internationally renowned movie star, Nicolas Cage, who came with him. It is said that this man has been full of respect and curiosity for Chinese culture since he was a child, and he has a deep admiration for it. He has always wanted to come to China, but it has always been difficult to make the trip due to his busy work schedule. He only comes once in a while, and because of his full work schedule, it is difficult to fully enjoy it. This is a rare opportunity to take time off to spend a leisurely vacation in the famous Qinling scenic area in China, accompanied by friends from the inspection group. This is a written letter forwarded by Cage's agent to Su Ming through Li Wanting. The wording is very official and impeccable, however, when Li Wanting communicated with Su Ming, what she said was not so pretty. The market situation in Hollywood has been different in the past 2 years. In order to pay back the money, the has-been uncle has accepted too many bad movies, and the box office has become worse and worse. Over time, his reputation in the industry has also been ruined, and now he can't even make bad movies. The prices in the United States are high, the expenses are high, there are many entertainments, and everyone has to spend money every day. Uncle Cage can't stand it anymore. He comes to China to eat and drink for free for a while, and he just avoids the tax bureau's reminders. I can't even afford an agent, so I pretend to be my own agent. Boss, I'm telling you, this uncle is so embarrassed. I actually paid for several meals, boss, should you give me more? Let's allocate some funds for activities. The last sentence was the key point. The little fairy came over with a charming smile. You're coming back soon, what kind of activity funds do you need? Su Ming rolled her eyes. She was the most expensive spender in the entire inspection team. She alone had spent more than 80,000 yuan. Special funding in US dollars. After thinking for a while, he typed another line, but this thing was done well, I will give you some bonus when I come back. No matter how downcast and impoverished Nicolas Cage is, he is still an international first-line superstar. He may be outdated in Hollywood, but he is still famous in China. Moreover, Chinese people like to watch the excitement and have a certain mentality of worshipping foreigners. This old-fashioned big name really wants to come to China. If he goes to any big city, any well-known attractions and shopping malls, he will definitely receive a grand reception. In an era where hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars can be made from pornographic platforms, it is too easy for Cage to come to China to make a little money, so why must he come to a zoo in Yangchuan, a second-tier city? Li Wanting said it in an understatement, as if Cage was really down and out and wanted to cheat him out of food and drinks, but Su Ming knew in his heart that the little goblin had obviously put a lot of effort into inviting Cage. Daowin Pictures has only been established recently, with insufficient foundation and limited reputation. Being able to invite an international celebrity like Nicolas Cage is undoubtedly an invisible promotion for Daowin Pictures. That's why Su Ming said he would give her a bonus. 1 point bonus, how much is 1 point? How much is 1 point? Is 2 points good? 3 points is best. The little goblin made another drooling expression. Then she posted another photo of her. She was at the beach, wearing a 3-point bikini. Her figure was as hot as any other girl on the beach, and she smiled coquettishly at the camera. Su Ming's little heart skipped a few beats when this benefit came unexpectedly in the middle of the night. "Boss, 1 o'clock, what time is it?" the little goblin started to babble again. Su Ming shook his head and smiled, but did not answer her. If he continued to talk in this way, it would be flirting and inappropriate. "When will you arrange your return trip?" "Send it directly to the film company. I will lead a team to pick you up." Su Ming typed the last line and then hung up on MSN. After the investigation group's affairs were settled, Su Ming pulled out another poster. On the poster, the stars are shining brightly. Promotional poster for Legend of the Gods. Legend of the Gods is a fantasy myth film produced by China Star, co-directed by Suan and Yang Longcheng, starring Jet Li, Fan Bing, Huang Xiaoming, Gu Tianl, Liang Jiawei, Xiangzhou, Wen Zhang, and Su Cheng. Long Wu's face was unleashed, and almost half of the entertainment circles in mainland China and Hong Kong were attracted. Anyone could be a first-line movie star who could star in a movie. Oh, left doesn't count. The company invested 200 million and invited Hollywood special effects teams to join in to create a Chinese-style magical blockbuster, which is known as the most gorgeous special effects in the history of Chinese movies. Legend of the Gods can be said to be Huaxia Xing's biggest film in the past 10 years. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is one of the most gorgeous films in Hong Kong film history. According to the original plan, Legend of the Gods will not be released until next year. Since the zoo provided many animals to assist in the filming, a lot of post-production special effects production was reduced, and the filming time was greatly shortened. However, even if the shooting time is shortened and the film is released earlier, it won't be more than half a year in advance, right? This is obviously a bit unreasonable. It's unreasonable. Long Wu smiled a little lonely and helplessly on the other end of the phone. He didn't explain anything more. "You should do me a favor and pay more attention to the promotion and distribution matters in the mainland. My wife and I might come too." Long Wu obviously didn't want to say the reason. For a person of his age and with this kind of experience, even if he wasn't prepared to say it, others wouldn't be able to tell. Su Ming didn't say much and said directly, "10th brother, don't worry, whatever you need me to do will be absolutely fine." Long Wu hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll have someone send you the negatives. You can take a look first." "Okay," Su Ming said. After establishing a film and television company, Su Ming felt that his greatest enjoyment was having an exclusive viewing room. The film company is not very large, with only a few hundred square meters of office space, 1/3 of which is a small independent cinema. The key employees of the film and television company are all studying and inspecting abroad, and there are only 2 or 3 big cats and kittens left to maintain the company's daily operations. Fortunately, the company's main task at present is inspection, and there are not many tasks for the time being, and there are almost no decent ones under the company. Well-known artists, management is not difficult. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I saw a little girl with a ponytail at the front desk through the company's 2 locked glass doors, taking a nap on the table. He frowned slightly. "Sleeping in the company? Or is it the front desk receptionist, the face of the company?" But when I looked up at the clock on the wall, I felt relieved. It's already 7:30 in the evening, long past the off-duty time, and even the company door is locked. I don't know why this little girl didn't leave, but she actually took the initiative to work overtime. But when she works overtime, why does she lie there with the door closed and sleep? Su Ming took out the key and unlocked the company's glass door. He then took out his badge and swiped it on the access control. The glass door slowly opened with a beeping sound. The little girl at the front desk was unaware and still sleeping. He followed the corridor and glanced at the office area inside. It was dark inside and no one was there. He came to the front desk and gently knocked on the table. Dong dong. The little girl who was taking a nap finally raised her head, rubbed her sleepy eyes, and said drowsily, "Oh, hello, sir, is there anything I can help you with?" "There's nothing you can do to help me." Su Ming smiled and said, "If you feel sleepy, go home and sleep. You'll get cold here, so close the door." The door. The little girl subconsciously looked towards the company door, and saw the two locked doors just open. Then she suddenly realized, stood up, opened her eyes wide, and stared at Su Ming in horror. "Who are you? How did you get in? What are you going to do? Leave quickly, I'm going to call the police." Su Ming was speechless. Where did he attract this little fool? "I have the key." "Okay." Su Ming wordlessly shook the company key in his hand, then took out his badge and gestured, and finally pointed at a huge photo hanging on the wall. After solving Yang Tao's problem, Su Ming was in a good mood. After completing these actions, he smiled and looked at the confused female receptionist in front of him with interest, waiting to see her recognize that he was the boss of the company. "Boss," the person behind Mr. Su in the photo is embarrassed and nervous. The little fool looked at the man in front of him wearing big underpants with a strange smile on his face. He glared at him inexplicably, then followed Su Ming's fingers and turned to look at the huge photo on the wall. In the photo, there is a young man wearing slender white breeches, leading a black horse and wandering by the lake. It was Su Ming's photo taken in the first issue of the Internal magazine, looking like a successful person. Su Ming continued to smile, waiting to receive the young girl's adoring gaze. "Huh," the little fool looked at the photo, then turned to look at Su Ming carefully. "The man in front of me is wearing big pants, a pair of white sneakers that can be bought for more than 10 yuan on a street stall, and a t-shirt that has turned a little white after being washed." The little fool rubbed his hair and muttered with a puzzled look on his face, "They look similar, could they be relatives?" After saying that, he looked at the big photo with a look of nymphomaniac, "But our boss is more handsome." My God, Su Ming was completely defeated by this little fool. He looked down at the big pants he wore casually, pointed at his nose in depression and said, "I am Su Ming." Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 692. Mr. Su. After the little fool figured out the situation, he was as helpless as a frightened rabbit. He lowered his head and twisted his hands together, half lowering his head, looking at Su Ming with an innocent and pitiful look on his face. Su Ming was speechless. The front desk of the company has several necessary qualities: dignified and generous, beautiful and smart. The little fool named Xi and Linla in front of me has nothing to do with them. She is average looking, only 70 points and not ugly at all. She has an ordinary face. The little round face looked blank, looking as if it hadn't woken up yet. Who recruited it? How could such a person be recruited to serve as the front desk? Before she could say anything, the little fool Xi and Linla pouted and said, "Mr. Su, you won't fire me." Su Ming was stunned. Can he read minds? This is a rare skill. Before he could speak, Xi and Linla burst into tears. She said in a voice that she wanted to cry but didn't dare to cry, "Mr. Su, please don't fire me, I'm so pitiful, I will definitely do it in the future, no more sleeping during working hours." Su Ming was completely defeated by her and waved his hand weakly. "No matter what, just be confused if you are confused. The film and television company does not expect to rely on a front desk to take the lead, so it is enough not to sleep during working hours during the day." Looking at Xi and Linla, she sighed and said helplessly, "First, it's not working time now, so it's okay for you to sleep, but it's best to go home and sleep to avoid getting sick. Second." Once again, before Su Ming could finish speaking, Xi and Linla interrupted him and said with a sad face, "The house I rented has expired. The landlord wants to take over the house for his son to get married." He won't live in it anymore. I'm looking for. As he spoke, he looked like he was about to start crying. Stop. Let's get down to business. Don't have money to pay the rent, Su Ming was a little surprised. The film and television company was not large, but the treatment was not bad, so that the employees could not even pay the rent. Unless this fool is a hand-chopping party. No sky. Okay, just stay here, Su Ming shrugged. Since there was no one in the company at night, I just wanted to hire a free man on duty to look at the door. But this little fool is the doorkeeper, forget it, it's better than a puppy. Is 3 days enough? Su Ming asked casually. That's enough. Su Ming fainted. He had seen confused people before, but never such a confused one. You can live here as long as you like. Su Ming couldn't even answer the words. He sat down on the sofa feebly and waved his hand. Go ahead and open the screening room. There is a movie coming from Xiangjiang Huaxia Star Company. I want to watch it. Look. Well. Mr. Su, please sit down for a while. I'll go and open it now. The little confused Xi and Linla turned around and ran into the corridor. Not long after, the lights in the office inside came on, the sound of the computer host starting up, and the lights in the screening room. Reveal. When she reappeared, she already had a cup of hot coffee in her hand. It's ready, Mr. Su. Little Muddlehead came over with coffee. Oh, thank you. Su Ming stood up and reached out to pick up the coffee. As soon as she stretched out her hand and before it touched the cup, Xi and Linla stepped back and retracted the coffee she was holding. Mr. Su, this cup of coffee is not for you. Xi and Linla opened her eyes wide and said innocently. Su Ming. No, Mr. Su, I just woke up. I was afraid that I would be sleepy again. If you gave me any instructions, it would be bad if I fell asleep, so I made a cup of coffee to refresh myself. If you are thirsty, I made you a cup. Tea and coffee are bad for gay men's health. Xi and Linla explained seriously, as if it was a matter of course. Made a cup of tea? What about tea? There's tea. Su Ming looked around, but couldn't see the shadow of tea. Mr. Su. Okay. Stop it. Su Ming was afraid that if he kept talking, he would be pissed to death by this little fool. Even the shells didn't do anything to him in the big winds and waves. If he was pissed off by a clerk in his company, he would be furious. That would be great fun. If word spreads about it, people may not know what they will say. He turned around and strode towards the screening room. The screening room was neatly tidied, and the armchair in the middle, which was the most suitable for watching movies, had been put down. On the small table beside it, there was a cup of steaming green tea, a small bag of biscuits to satisfy hunger, and one for recording. A small notebook, a pen, and an iPad that can be connected to the internet at any time. The dragon-shaped logo of the State Administration of Radio, Film, and Television has appeared on the big screen, and the picture is fixed on the dragon logo. Su Ming then looked back with surprise and glanced at Xi and Linla who had followed him. He didn't expect her to be confused, but she seemed to be quite careful in her work. He didn't say anything, nodded and sat down. Let's start. Xi and Linla pressed a play button in the back, and then sat down quietly in the corner near the door in the last row. After the familiar opening scene of Huaxia Star, a gorgeous magical world appeared on the screen. In the small screening room, the exciting music sounded. After watching the 2-hour movie for less than half an hour, Su Ming felt a little bored. He subconsciously wanted to find something to eat. When he touched it, he happened to touch the cookies prepared by Xi and Linla on the table and opened them. I opened the bag and took out a piece. It was stuffed with Oreos. It tasted pretty good. Gurgle, gurgle. Then there was a rustling sound, which sounded like a little mouse stealing food. Looking back, Xi and Linla was holding a bag of potato chips, eating them with relish while watching the movie. Su Ming shook his head and smiled, ignoring her. He ate biscuits and continued watching the movie. The lights in the screening room came on again. After watching the whole movie, Su Ming's heart sank a little. He really didn't know what to say. To be honest, Su Ming's embarrassment occurred more than once during the whole movie watching process. Longwu was famous for his whole life, and the famous Waxiaxing brand had made so many classic memories. When he was old, he actually made such a movie. It can be said that his reputation was not preserved. Xiang Zhou performed very hard in the movie. It can be seen that this martial artist who was actually 30 years old and entered middle age tried his best. Unfortunately, it was probably because the ancestors did not reward him with food. He was not the material for this bowl of rice at all. If it were an ordinary audience who spent money to watch the movie, they would probably have started cursing by now. Since he knew Longwu's family, Su Ming felt sorry for Longwu instead, and a sentence came to his mind: poor parents in the world. Women are afraid of marrying the wrong man, and men are afraid of entering the wrong profession. Xian Linla's muttering came from behind. Su Ming was stunned and looked back at Xian Linla. She shook her head with regret, stood up and prepared to turn off the big screen and then clean the projection room. Su Ming's heart moved slightly, and asked, "Don't rush to clean up, what do you think of this movie? Tell me your thoughts." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 693. Xian Linla was stunned. She was holding a broom like a cleaning lady, preparing to clean up the place. Su Ming's feet were better, she had been eating potato chips in the back, and the ground was full of crumbs. Put it down, Su Ming was speechless. It's not like you were hired to do cleaning. A front desk costs more than cleaning in a month. What do you think of the movie? Let's sit down and talk. The company is still young and lacks talents in all aspects, especially those with certain insights into movies. There are professionals in the company, but it does not mean that those with industry experience and academic qualifications will have the ability to watch movies. I just heard Xian Linla say something like men are afraid of getting into the wrong profession. It was similar to what Su Ming was thinking, and it resonated a lot, so I wanted to hear Xian Linla's opinion. Xian Linla put the broom aside, sat down, thought about it, and said, in general, this is a bad movie, but it is the kind of bad movie that can be saved, or in other words, it's a bad film that tried to take the right path but failed. The first half of the sentence can be seen by everyone. It is not strange for Xian Linla to say this, and it does not mean that she is good at it. However, the second half of the sentence is a bit interesting. Please tell me in detail, where did it die? How could it be saved? Su Ming asked. Well, this film combines Chinese mythology, Western magic, comedy, romance, action, monsters, thrillers, ghosts, and animals, and many other elements. It is full of flaws. The actors' acting skills are as exaggerated as if they were acting in a stage play. The special effects are very high. But it feels very 50 cents. In terms of content, it does not take into account historical facts and cultural sense at all, but just starts from scratch and arbitrarily transforms it on the basis of historical legends. In the end, it gives people a nondescript feeling. To be honest, if there were no previous publicity, or simply don't say that this is an adaptation of Feng Shenyanyi, just watch it as an ordinary entertainment film. This movie is at least above the passing line, but if it is called Feng Shenyanyi, people can't help but think it's about to be hummed. Su Ming saw that when Xian Linla talked about the movie, her previous confused look was no longer there, and instead she spoke eloquently, so he nodded without interrupting her and motioned for her to continue. Xian Linla paused for a moment, clasped her fingers and said, "First of all, This cast list is so fake. Jet Li is ranked first in this film, followed by Fan Bing, Huang Xiaoming, and a bunch of other big names. The audience just goes to the cast list. Look, the result is. She spread her hands and said, "Damn it. It's just a liar. The whole movie has as many big name roles as Legend's Zozo. Let's just call it Xiangzhou Legend." So after watching the movie, the audience will not care about the quality of this movie. What happened? My first impression was that I must have been deceived. Will the audience still believe it as long as Xiangzhou appears next time? Su Ming hummed. In this film, Longwu promoted his son to the top position. Xiangzhou, who was ranked lower in the cast, was actually the leading actor. Also, the special effects are indeed gorgeous, but the style is really neither fish nor fowl. At first glance, it is obvious that it is plagiarized from Avatar, Warcraft, and a lot of foreign blockbusters. It is just plagiarism, but has the artist's brain been eaten by a dog? The style of Shan Pao is extremely low, and the style is extremely ugly. It looks like a cosplay at a wedding banquet of a rich country man. Of course, I understand, this is to cater to the current exaggerated aesthetic of Shan Pao. As for other shortcomings, let's not talk about the actor's acting skills. Anyway, these days, not many people really rely on acting skills to make a living. They are basically like taking slide photos. The key is that this film should not be called The Romance of the Gods. First of all, the screenwriter not only couldn't figure out whether Neza stepped on the Hot Wheels or the Kinkan Circle, he even had no idea about ancient Chinese culture. It looked like a Western-style European castle, and the monsters behind it were designed in the style of Hollywood Warcraft. A good-looking fairy with Eastern characteristics is transformed into a Western monster, which is another way of deceiving the audience. As Xin Linla spoke, she became a little excited. She suddenly stood up, like a great man pointing out the country. She waved her hand heavily and glared at Su Ming fiercely and said, "Sincerity. Sincerity. Where is the sincerity?" Throughout the film, I only saw a lot of deception and fooling. The audience can accept the lack of quality, but will never pay for the deception. Su Ming was stunned by her sharp style. He took out a napkin blankly and wiped the saliva that splashed on his face. "Calm down, calm down. This is not our company's film," Su Ming said. "But they used our animals." The animals are pretty good. Shen Gongbao's mount and the zoo's Black Panther are better than those big names. Xin Linley hummed a few times, sat down again, and said, "In fact, the original work of Feng Shenyanyi has a grand layout, which is quite spectacular from imagination to depth of thinking. The game of spheres of influence in the divine realm, the fateful conflict between humans and gods, the interconnection of the development and transformation of the divine realm and the human realm, and the endless emergence of ancient mythical beasts and functions, different formations and magic weapons. Each character represents a spiritual and philosophical view in the original work, which implies the religious metaphor of the dispute between Taoism and Confucianism, as well as the folk culture of destiny and destiny. It can be called an ancient mythological epic of the Chinese nation. If you dig deep, you can definitely make a blockbuster movie that is not inferior to the Lord of the Rings series and the Harry Potter series." Su Ming felt the same way about this. Not only The Romance of the Gods, but also the four great classics, Water Margin in Red Mansions and Journey to the West, The Plum in the Golden Lotus, oh no, The Romance of the Gods, the cultural background, storyline, and characters of any of them are enough to make a series of super blockbusters. It is simply inexhaustible. Cultural treasures. Then you said that this film can still be saved, but it just failed to follow the right path. What do you mean? Su Ming asked again. Xin Linley had just finished a long speech, and seemed to be a little dry in the mouth. She took a long breath and felt a little thirsty. She had finished her coffee long ago. She looked at Su Ming with a questioning look. Su Ming had a cup of tea in his hand. I haven't drunk it, you drink it. Su Ming nodded and smiled. The tea was already cold. Xian Linla picked it up and drank it in one gulp. She wiped her mouth with satisfaction and said, "What is a movie?" "It's a story. If you want to make a good movie, the first thing you have to do is to tell a good story in a down-to-earth manner. From this point of view, although the plot of Legend of the Gods is simple and cliched, it tells a story in a way that ordinary people can understand: the battle between justice and evil, the protagonist fighting monsters and upgrading step by step, and finally obtaining a powerful weapon and defeating the boss. Unlike many domestic movies nowadays, either they are forced to express some inexplicable ideas, or they tell the story too mysteriously, and many people can't understand it at all. Both are not good, especially the latter. After all, making movies is to make money, not to hold art exhibitions. No matter how high the style is, it is useless if the audience can't understand it. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 694. Xian Linla's words made Su Ming think of several other movies released earlier, all of which were art films. Su Ming felt that his aesthetics was quite advanced, but even he looked drowsy. What the little fool said is true at all. Even if it is an art film, it should be watchable and attractive to the audience. In fact, many so-called art films, like bad commercial films, only have the title of art, and the content is really unflattering. In a commercial society, such art films can only dig their own graves. I would add that even art films can be made into a form that the people like to see and hear. Su Ming said, for example, The Grandmaster. That's right, this is a matter of plot and acting. To be honest, the visual effects of Legend of the Gods are actually quite stunning. The castle in the sky is quite majestic, with 10 arcs sailing in the turbulent blue sea, and a castle like a space fortress. Walking through the Bagua array, and the ever-changing nine-tailed demon fox. From the perspective of an audiovisual feast, it is indeed a magical blockbuster. However, there are real problems with the plot, since we already have a strong special effects team and visual performance capabilities. Why not is this money, technology, and high technology used for the righteous way? I remember that when technology was not developed in the past, the special effects of Journey to the West and The Legend of the Gods filmed in the mainland may not even cost 30 cents, but the plots are very attractive. Su Ming thought for a while and said, adaptation is difficult. If it is too deep, most viewers will not be able to understand it. If it is too shallow, it will become what it is now, cut scenes that rely on special effects to support the scene. There is no need to make major changes at all. Xian Linla waved her hand with great momentum. No need to adapt. Su Ming was slightly startled. This statement was quite new. Aren't all the current fantasy blockbusters adapted from the original works? In other words, there is no need for large-scale adaptation. The purpose of adaptation is to faithfully reflect the original work. Xian Linla explained. Chinese culture is extensive and profound, and the myths and legends passed down from our ancestors have been passed down for hundreds of years. Polished and tested, such a story is not only beautiful and interesting, but also full of historical and cultural value. As long as we inherit it, make appropriate adjustments on the original basis, and give it technical innovation and gorgeous visual presentation, it will be perfect. Why do you have to abandon the original storyline and talk nonsense? From screenwriters to directors, do you think your IQ is better than that of many ancients over the past few hundred years? If so, why not just write a new one? The story is just fine, why use the name of a famous book? Isn't this a lie? During this trip to the film company, he really picked up a medium-sized treasure. After chatting with Xian Linla for more than an hour, Su Ming found that this guard was not as good as a dog, and even the boss couldn't recognize him in person. She actually has some unique and profound insights into movies. I had a great time chatting with her and even learned a lot from her. Seeing that it was getting late, Su Ming looked at the time and was about to leave if he and a young female colleague stayed alone in the company until too late. When he responded to Long Wu early tomorrow morning, he asked Su Ming to watch the internal screening first, hoping that he would give some suggestions. Before leaving, the film critic who was just a moment ago turned into a little fool again. "Mr. Su, I will stay in the company for at most 3 days before leaving. I will definitely find a house within a week. If I haven't left in half a month, I will accept your dismissal." Su Ming rolled his eyes. "How many days? Does this idiot have any sense of time? Forget it, live here if you like. Don't sleep at the front desk at night. Go to the small screening room and sleep with the air conditioner on, so you won't get sick. If you can't handle renting a house by yourself, just make a report and ask the company assistant to help." Su Ming said helplessly. Xian Linla's eyes suddenly lit up, and she said with a smile, "Mr. Su, you are such a good person, so handsome." Su Ming was in a good mood, and suddenly looked up at the big photo of himself hanging on the wall, feeling melancholy and speechless again. Early the next morning, Su Ming called Long Wu. "Brother Ten, I've watched the movie," Su Ming said. On the other end of the phone, Long Wu smiled. "How do you feel? Is it so exciting?" Su Ming was silent for a second or two and said, "Brother Ten, we are friends and partners, right?" Long Wu: "It's so good, why do you say that?" "Of course it is. Then friends should be honest with each other, right?" Su Ming also smiled. Long Wu was silent for 2 or 3 seconds and suddenly burst into laughter. "I know what you're going to say. Do you want to tell me that this is a bad movie?" Long Wu asked. "Actually, there are many merits." Su Ming tried his best to choose his words. It was not because he was afraid that Long Wu would not offend him, but because this film was a father's contribution to his son, and Su Ming did not want to hurt the father too directly. Select part of the conversation with Xian Linla yesterday and tell it to Long Wu in a more tactful way. Unexpectedly, before Su Ming could start speaking, Long Wu said, "Don't worry, I am also a movie maker. How could I not know whether the movies I made are good or not? I invited a group of industry experts. Oh, and Wang Jin has been screened twice internally, and I would like to hear everyone's suggestions. The results are negative reviews, and it is a terrible movie. The company and mainland professionals have predicted that the total box office will be difficult to exceed 500 million. 3 to 400 million, I can wake up with a smile after recovering the cost. I am not afraid of your jokes. My wife has been so angry that she has spent a lot of money shopping these days." Hearing what Long Wu said, Su Ming admired this former Xiangjiang boss for his ability to take things up and let them go, and to smile at the wind and clouds. This was a truly open-minded life. "Brother Ten, I won't say anything more. In short, if I can do my best, I will do my best," Su Ming said. "Although your company has only produced one movie, it has a very good reputation at the box office." Long Wu: "So, I want to hear, what suggestions do you have? The movie has not been officially promoted and released yet. If there is a chance, how much more? At least I can make some remedial measures, so as not to make me suffer too badly and give Xiangzhou some hope." Su Ming thought to himself, "Boss, you really love your son. For this reason, are you still planning to let Xiangzhou develop his acting career? I said that he is my son. As long as he lets me see that he works hard enough, I will give him 3 chances. This is the first time. I don't want him to despair the first time," Long Wu said in a deep voice. "Well, Brother Ten, I will summon my people to discuss it now and call you tomorrow. However, as of now, the movie has been filmed and has been scheduled. If we want to make up for it, there is probably little hope," Su Ming said. "I understand, everyone should try their best. But when it comes to human affairs, everyone depends on destiny," Long Wu said. Su-ming hung up the phone and went to the film company again. The so-called underlings are actually only Xi and Linle. Cai Liming and Li Wanting are both abroad. Moreover, Cai Liming's strength lies in distribution and management, and Li Wanting's strength lies in communication. From the perspective of film criticism, at present, both not as good as Xi and Linle. I wonder if she has any suggestions. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 695. When I arrived at the company, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, which happened to be working time. There were only 2 or 3 big cats and kittens left in the film and television company. But this time, Su-ming finally found a sense of superiority as a boss. "Hello, Mr. Su." "Good morning, Mr. Su." "What instructions does the boss have?" As soon as they entered the door, several young employees greeted Su-ming very enthusiastically. Their attitude was completely different from Xi and Linle's confused look last night. After all, there were only a few people in the company who didn't know Su-ming. That kind of in front of Su-ming's photos and himself, it is really rare for a fool to say that our boss is more handsome than you. The problem is that during working hours in broad daylight, the strange receptionist Xi and Linle disappeared somewhere, leaving the reception area empty. Su-ming was furious, grabbed a passing employee, and asked, "Where's the front desk?" "Are you talking about Xi and Linle?" the employee said. "I just saw her in the screening room, she seemed to be sleeping." "What? What time is it?" "You're still sleeping." Su-ming's face darkened. This little fool had gone too far. "We had a very close conversation last night, but this was not a personal relationship, but work." He was doing it all. He agreed to let her live in the company, and even agreed to let the company assistant help her rent a house. She didn't say thank you in return, at least she couldn't push herself too far, and now she doesn't even care about her job. "Mr. Su, shall I take you there?" The young employee saw that Su-ming looked a little unkind and asked cautiously. "No, I'll go by myself." Su-ming strode across the corridor, pushed open the door to the screening room, walked in, and slammed the door shut with his backhand. The employees in the office looked at the closed office door and were silent for a moment. Although the young boss did not come to the company often, through various channels, everyone knew that Su-ming was actually a good-tempered boss who rarely treated his employees. Get angry. Getting angry won't solve the problem and will hurt your body. If an employee's behavior really crosses Su-ming's bottom line, he will not get angry and will fire him directly. After a few seconds, the flames of gossip in the office suddenly rose, and whispers were exchanged. "Hey, is the boss having an affair with Xi and Linle? Isn't it possible? Just Xi and Linle's looks? Even if she is an ordinary person, can we, Mr. Su, like her?" "That's not necessarily true. You don't know, right? When I looked at the surveillance video last night, I found that Mr. Su came over in the evening, and Xi and Linle was the only one in the company." "Ah. Real? Me." There was a buzz, and the office almost exploded. "What happened?" "Two people entered the screening room." "There was no surveillance in the screening room." "I don't know what happened." "Is it because you're looking at samples?" "But, the two of us stayed in the screening room for more than 3 hours before we came out." "A movie usually only lasts about 100 minutes, so 3 hours is 180 minutes. A man and a woman alone, in the dead of night, in a screening room without surveillance, what are they doing for these 8 or 90 minutes? Isn't it possible? Even someone with her looks can hang up Mr. Su. Damn it, such a good pig has been replaced by a rotten cabbage. Miss me, I'm as beautiful as a flower, and Mr. Su didn't even look at me. Then what can you do? Who asked you to go shopping right after work? There are so many people during work hours. Even if Mr. Su wants to see you, there is no chance to be alone. Okay. Starting from tomorrow, I will work overtime every day, I don't believe I won't get a chance. In another company, the average employee may not dare to gossip about the boss so directly, but the film and television company is a special case. It has been relatively leisurely recently, and most of the employees are young people in the entertainment industry. Gossip is a normal part of life, and even the office environment here is very relaxed. It is semi-open, unlike ordinary companies that divide the office into identical cubicles. In such a large office, each employee can plan his or her own office space according to his or her own preferences. Under the overall corporate culture of Dowin Group, each subsidiary company has its own characteristics. But Su-Ming couldn't hear the gossip outside now. He was sitting in the screening room with a small stack of A4 printing paper and watching carefully. Xin Linla looked like a child who had done something wrong. She was sitting opposite him with unkempt hair and traces of drool hanging from the corner of her mouth. It was obvious that she had just been dragged up from her sleep not long ago. She didn't even put on basic makeup. Her hair was unkempt and her face was hung with big dark circles under his eyes. "Mr. Su, I rode too late last night and forgot to set the alarm clock." Xin Linla was about to cry as she spoke, "I'm so pitiful. I have hypoglycemia and neurasthenia. The doctor said I'm still in mood syndrome. Mr. Su, don't be angry, I will pay attention to it in the future. If you dare to cry, I will fire you," Su Ming said coldly without raising his head while turning over the documents in his hand. He is considered to have read a lot of people, and he has some skills to deal with all kinds of people, but there is really nothing he can do against this little fool. As soon as I entered the screening room, I saw her sleeping soundly on the sofa where she was watching a movie with one leg crossed and her back, and drool flowed from the corner of her mouth. I turned on the light and woke her up and asked, only to find out that she left last night. Later, Xin Linla made a special analysis report. It was the copy in Su Ming's hand, which specifically focused on the movie Legend of the Gods. It divided it into categories, pointed out the pros and cons in detail, and gave a series of suggestions for improvement. Some of these suggestions are exactly the purpose of Su Ming's coming here today: how to make the greatest possible recovery now that the filming of the movie has been completed. Su Ming was stunned at the time. Could this little fool be able to predict the future? There are indeed such people in the world. They are usually confused, or even idiots, but they have sharp intuition far beyond ordinary people, and can even vaguely see the future and some supernatural things. Could it be that Xin Linla is such a person? A little witch? After asking a few questions, I found out that this is her habit, or hobby. Some people like to buy, and can't control their hands when they go to Dobeo. Some people like money, and forget about party spirit and national laws when they see money. Some people are addicted to sex, and can't walk when they see beautiful girls. Xin Linla's biggest hobby is to criticize movies. Every time she finishes watching a movie, no matter how tired or late it is, she will write a lot of comments and suggestions, otherwise her mind will be as active as a war, and she can't sleep at all. Not only do you have to write it down, but you have to format it neatly, and it's best to print it into a book. It's really what she said, so she has a bit of neurasthenia and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Last night, I wrote the copy for Legend of the Gods until 4 o'clock in the morning, and I slept until Su Ming came here. After being scolded by Su Ming with a cold face, Xin Linla's mouth shrank, tears rolled in her eyes, and she said pitifully, "Boss Su." Okay, don't cry." Su Ming was scared of her. There were so many employees outside. If this girl went out with red eyes, he would be completely unable to explain. He quickly changed the subject. "Did you write these before you came to the company?" Yes. I have been like this since I was in the second year of high school. I will write every time I watch a movie." Xin Linla nodded. "How many movies have you watched?" Su Ming's mouth twitched and asked tentatively. "Probably more than 1,000 xi, and Linla scratched her messy hair and said, I can't remember the details, anyway, I will watch it when I have time. Then do you keep all the copywriting you wrote? Su Ming was even more curious. Well, they are all in the suitcases. President Su, do you want to see them? Under the sofa where Xi and Linla slept, there were 3 half-person suitcases. They were used to pack her luggage when she moved. She bent over and stuck out her butt to pull the suitcases out. The suitcases looked heavy and it was very difficult to pull them. Su Ming bent over and grabbed a suitcase to help pull it together, and found that the suitcase was unexpectedly heavy. It is estimated that each suitcase weighs at least 200 kilograms. I don't know how this skinny and weak little girl brought 3 suitcases to the company. It is estimated that it cost a lot of money to hire a mover. He exerted force on his arms, waist, and abdomen at the same time. In Xi and Linla's eyes that looked like a monster, he pulled out 2 large suitcases with one hand, and then casually pulled out the suitcase that Xi and Linla gritted her teeth and dragged with both hands for a long time before pulling out a small half. Wow, President Su, you are so strong, Xi and Linla exclaimed. Fortunately, the screening room is soundproof, otherwise if this sentence was heard outside, who knows what kind of rumors would spread. When all 3 large boxes in a row were opened, Su Ming was stunned. I thought that most of them should be girls' clothes, cosmetics, and other daily necessities. Who knew that they were all kinds of densely written texts? Some were printed on A4 paper, some looked like student homework books, some were workbooks with covers, and some were handwritten directly on white paper. Many of the small books had yellowed paper, and the edges of the workbooks were frayed. Su Ming casually flipped through a few books that looked very old. The font was still very immature, and a sense of youth came over him. Titanic, filmed in 1994. So annoying, my mom said it was a movie, so I was scared and didn't dare to watch it. Single men and women, the story is very vulgar, the plot is old-fashioned, but it is really good, suitable for a boring night, eating popcorn at home to kill time, and then having a good sleep. The Godfather 1, classic enough, but from my viewing experience, the plot progresses slowly in the second half, and the plot is a bit depressing. If it were put in today, it might not be able to achieve the brilliant achievements it had at the beginning. Of course, the times are different. The 3 large boxes are almost full of viewing copywriting. Some of the early ones may not be called copywriting, but can only be regarded as some simple experience essays, and the later the experience, the more mature and perfect these experience and feelings are. If these 3 boxes have the level of the copywriting of the Legend of the Gods that Su Ming got, no, even if only 1/10 of it has such a level, it will be a valuable asset for Douyin Pictures, and it can avoid many detours in the future. Can these boxes be provided to the company? Su Ming pointed at the boxes and asked. Of course, the company won't take them for free. Huh? Oh, of course, Xi and Linla nodded stupidly, and without waiting for Su Ming to speak, she suddenly said, no. Ah, Su Ming felt that he was about to be played by her. Xi and Linla quickly removed the top layer of copywriting on the box on the far right, and a few things were stuffed in a small corner below. A passbook, a bulging little girl's bag, 2 sets of women's underwear, and a pack of sanitary napkins printed with Hello Kitty. Xi and Linla hurriedly held these things in her arms, her face blushed for a rare time, and said, the rest can all be given to the company. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 696. Su Ming rarely works beyond his level. Whether it is subordinates asking for instructions beyond their level or leaders issuing instructions beyond their level, it is not a good habit. Once it becomes a habit, the company's management structure will completely become a decoration, and the authority and power of leaders at all levels will be deprived, leading to chaos and disorder in the company. However, this time is an exception. The management of the film and television company is almost all abroad. There is only one assistant to the general manager, who is responsible for daily affairs. In terms of level, he is still several levels lower than Su Ming. The moment the door of the projection room was opened, many heads in the large office opposite suddenly turned their heads and moved their eyes from the projection room door to their work at hand, pretending to work. Meeting Su Ming simply said 2 words and then walked into the meeting room. Not long after, the employees in the company filed in and saw Xi and Linlei, who was sitting on the left of Su Ming in the meeting room, and the gossip fire on their faces could not be hidden. The meeting was not long. Su Ming was concise and said 2 things. First, Dawen Film and Television will establish a film and television research department from today, and Xi and Linlei will be the department head. This department has several main tasks. When there is no specific business, as the name suggests, it spontaneously discusses and studies various film and television works. When Dawen Pictures has a shooting task, it is responsible for providing suggestions and quality control of film and television dramas. The former task is similar to a research center, or a professional library, and does not have much power, but the latter is a bit scary. Providing suggestions is easy to say, suggestions can be adopted or not, but quality control is different. To put it bluntly, it is review. This department has the right to review the films produced by Dawen Company. How big is this review power? Where is the boundary? Is it a one-man show, or is the review conclusion only for reference? Su Ming did not say it clearly at the meeting. He did not want to create a situation where a certain department is dominant, but hoped that under the leadership of CAI-Liming, the various departments of the film and television company could actively run in with each other and naturally form a cooperation method that best suits the company's situation. Second, determine the level. Xi and Linlei, the head of the research department, is currently at the same level as the leaders of several other departments. She is a middle-level cadre, 1 level lower than the deputy general manager. Judging from the work content and authority of the research department, the name and level of this department are actually inappropriate. The name of the department should be related to quality supervision. Since it has the right to review, the level should be higher than that of ordinary departments, at least the deputy general manager level, or directly managed by General Manager CAI-Liming, and Xi and Linlei herself should be at the same level as the assistant to the general manager. Power and level are sometimes not proportional. When greater power is given, the level can be appropriately suppressed. For Xi and Linlei, a newcomer who has risen by a rocket, suppressing her level first is a kind of protection. Finally, I talked to Chen Jun, the assistant to the general manager, separately and asked him to represent the company and help Xi and Linlei solve the housing problem as soon as possible. When CAI-Liming came to Dawen Film and Television, he only brought one person, that is, Chen Jun. In the past, Chen Jun was CAI-Liming's assistant at Huaxi University. The two cooperated very well. CAI-Liming changed jobs and poached Chen Jun to be his assistant. This little girl is confused. In her daily life, the company should take care of her more, Su Ming said to Chen Jun alone. Since it was a private discussion, Chen Jun was not too shy. After thinking for a while, he asked, "Boss Su, does the rented house need a garage?" Su Ming was stunned at first, not understanding what Chen Jun meant. What does it matter if there is a parking space or a garage? Xi and Linlei doesn't seem to have a car, right? Besides, even if she has a car, why does she need a garage? Isn't it enough if there is a parking space in the community? In the final analysis, it is not necessary to ask for instructions on trivial matters such as whether there is a parking space. Does the chairman need to ask about what brand of toothpaste and what color curtains the employees buy at home? Do you still want to live? It's right to ask for instructions and report, But what's the matter? If Chen Jun can't even figure out such a trivial matter, and still ask for instructions and report one by one, and still be a shitty assistant to the general manager, CAI Liming would have been annoyed to death long ago. He didn't answer, and looked at Chen Jun a little strangely, and Su Ming immediately understood from his expression. Whether there is a garage or not, this sentence has a deep meaning. The garage is not considering Xi and Linla at all, but considering himself as the chairman. Xi and Linla suddenly jumped up, and Chen Jun probably couldn't figure out what his relationship with her was, and whether there was anything fishy going on. If he had a relationship with Xi and Linla, he would definitely go to her place. He had a car, and it was a relatively conspicuous Wrangler with a garage, which was not only convenient for parking, but also kept confidential. He would definitely hope that Xi and Linla's place had a garage. On the contrary, if he had no relationship with her, it didn't matter whether there was a garage or not. Even if Xi and Linla bought a car, the company didn't need to consider parking for her. The attitude and treatment of treating a company's middle-level coder and treating the chairman's lover as a part-time middle-level coder are completely different. As the assistant to the general manager, Chen Jun needed to figure out the situation before continuing his work. But even CAI Liming couldn't ask Su Ming directly about this, so he went around in circles. Su Ming looked at Chen Jun with a little surprise. He didn't realize that this guy, who looked taciturn, was really steady in doing things. With just a simple sentence, he considered everything very carefully. No wonder CAI Liming always said that this assistant was capable. Don't think too much, what I value is Xi and Linla's talent. I think the garage is fine. She doesn't have a car. Besides, a garage costs a lot of money. She will be treated like a normal middle-level coder in the company, Su Ming said. Chen Jun nodded, I understand. Oh, Mr. Su, some members of the inspection team will come back next weekend and arrive at the airport at 8 o'clock on Sunday evening. I know, Su Ming said. The instigator, Xi and Linla, was a small receptionist half a day ago. In the blink of an eye, she transformed into a middle-level coder of the company. After Su Ming left, he was immediately surrounded by a large group of colleagues, chattering with questions. Okay, I'll take down the chairman without saying a word. Sister, please teach me some experience. I don't expect to be able to catch high-quality stocks like our chairman. She can be half as good as him. I heard that Mr. Cai is still single, Minister Xin, why don't you give Mr. Su a pillow and help my sister match up? Xin Linla opened her eyes wide and stared blankly at a group of warblers and swallows. Film and television companies are like this. Su Ming can guess it without looking at it. Rumors can be found everywhere, even in places like zoos where there are more animals than people. The rumors about Hong Fei, Ding Jing, and him are not still flying all over the sky. When I returned to the office, I first had a phone call with Long Wu. In the copywriting given by Xin Linla, there are 2 suggestions that Su Ming believes will be of great help to the legend of the gods. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 697. After conveying the 2 suggestions to Long Wu, he obviously began to hesitate. Because the changes were too big, Xin Linla's suggestion was to repackage and promote the entire play, with 2 specific points. First, don't put a large group of stars who are actually guest stars in the list of leading actors, and directly promote the male lead Xiangzhou. From the content point of view, this play is completely starring Xiangzhou. From the original purpose of filming, it is nothing more than Long Wu spending money to promote his son. In this case, why bother to hide and deceive the audience into entering the theater? The audience is not blind. After watching a movie, the final result can only be that the audience feels cheated and curses. Not to mention ruining the reputation and credibility accumulated by Huaxiaxing over the years, it is likely to make the audience transfer their anger to Xiangzhou himself, which not only fails to promote him, but also pits him. Again, the audience can tolerate an actor with poor acting skills as long as he has a positive image and works hard enough. Many young actors who have almost no acting skills but are still popular are examples. But the audience will not tolerate deception and bad negative news. In Japan and South Korea, where the entertainment industry is well developed, once the bad behavior of deceiving fans and serious negative news are exposed, the popularity of popular artists will inevitably plummet, and the entertainment company will choose to freeze them. If you want to promote, you should promote them openly. Waxyacing has made countless male and female stars popular in recent years, including Xiangzhou. It is natural for the father to spend money to promote his son, and the audience can fully accept it. But you can't be a bitch and set up a memorial archway at the same time, which is to make fun of the audience. At the same time, you can openly strengthen the publicity of Xiangzhou himself. Su Ming also knows a little about Xiangzhou's experience. He could have enjoyed a ready-made comfortable life under the protection of his parents, living a life of luxury, or using Longwu's connections to open a few companies and flirt with small stars. But he chose to pursue his own ideals, starting from the bottom of the set, starting from a minor role, and chose the rarest and most difficult martial arts in the industry. After more than 10 years, he was covered with scars and made enough efforts. This is a completely sunny image full of positive energy, not to mention that his image and reputation are not bad. With the background and strength of Waxy star, a little publicity will make him very popular. Of course, there is a price to pay for doing this. Once a group of big names are excluded from the list of leading actors, overseas distribution will be greatly affected, especially in Asia. Indeed, many countries buy movies, and the first thing they look at is who is the leading actor and which famous actors are there. The fan effect exists everywhere. Xiangzhou may still have a certain degree of popularity in Hong Kong and the mainland, but almost no one knows him in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, and South Korea. In addition, Longwu needs to communicate with those first-line big names who help guest star out of friendship. After all, they are competing for low pay, turning down other schedules, and even risking starring in bad movies. In addition to their personal relationship with Longwu's family, they are more or less for the reputation of leading actor. Originally in the list of leading actors, the order of the actors was suddenly changed, and those big names will inevitably have other ideas. The first suggestion is relatively easy to implement. After all, Longwu's real purpose in filming Legend of the Gods was not to make money. With the continuous expansion of the mainland market, the overseas distribution in Asia is no longer a large part of the total film revenue that cannot be ignored, and those big-name actors, since they can come to help, must have a deep relationship with Longwu's family. For example, Jet Li is a close friend of Longwu. The ups and downs between the two families cannot be explained in a few words. Actors with such a deep relationship as him don't even need to explain anything. And the second suggestion gave Longwu a headache. Change the name, don't use the name Legend of the Gods, and try to avoid linking it with the investiture of the gods in the publicity, and dilute the color of the investiture of the gods. For example, it can be called The Rise of the Winged Tribe of the Shang and Zhou dynasties or The Last Winged Man. Even if it is the most vulgar name, The Battle of Good and Evil, it is better than Legend of the Gods. Xian Linla said it very thoroughly before. If this Legend of the Gods is regarded as a domestic fantasy drama, it is at least qualified. Although the plot is simple, it is very easy to understand and accept, and the main line is very clear. The highly publicized special effects, although there are various minor problems, such as the tacky gold all over the screen, but in general, the special effects technology is passable, and many plots can even be said to be amazing. As for the acting, please, just look at the people in the cast. Most of them don't seem to be famous for their acting skills. Since the audience buys tickets to watch it, they don't care about their acting skills. These are its advantages. But once it is linked to the investiture of the gods, all of this becomes a slot. Disrespect for history, disrespect for the original work, disrespect for national culture and classics. These few points can be scolded to death. Even the least important acting has become a big problem. The audience can tolerate a god covered in gold, but absolutely cannot accept a Yang Jian who looks like a fool. Tear it all down, invest a lot of resources, and re-promote it? It can be said that many characters and plots were created based on the investiture of the gods, and some are even characters in the investiture of the gods, but don't say that this is the investiture of the gods. That's called fraud. Another benefit of re-promoting is that it can attract attention and spark topics, and at the same time make people feel that Huaxiaxing is sincere, but just made a mistake before. Of course, there are also difficulties. Not using the signboard of Feng Shenyanyi will definitely lead to a weakening of attraction. Re-promoting requires a lot of publicity funds. In contrast, the dubbing and lines of some characters in the movie must be modified, which is the simplest one. Wow, this makes it difficult for me to choose, Longwu said on the other end of the phone. Su Ming thought for a while and said, Brother Shi, this matter is strictly speaking your family affair. Even if we are friends, I can't get involved too much. But since you asked me for my opinion, I won't hide it. I think this is the best choice. Whether it makes money in the end or not, it will not have a negative impact on Xiangzhou. How to choose, Brother Shi, you decide. No matter what, I support you. Your words enlightened me. The key is not to have a negative impact on Xiangzhou. No matter what the final result is, my whole family will be grateful. Longwu suddenly smiled and said, the person in the game is confused. I am a person in the game. What's more, the development has been too fast in recent years. I seem to be out of date now. I don't know what to do for a while. Can I take your suggestion out and let other people in the circle in Hong Kong discuss it together? Of course, Su Ming said. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 698. Su Ming didn't want to worry too much about Legend of the Gods. On the one hand, this movie was not produced by Daowin Company. Like many first-line movie stars, Su Ming only provided animal friendship help because of his personal relationship with Longwu. After all, this is Huaxia Star's movie, and it's not good for him to steal the show. On the other hand, this movie carries not only the box office, but also the parents' love for their children. From this perspective, this is a family affair, and Su Ming is even more of an outsider, so it's inconvenient to say more. It's Longwu's business whether he can accept those suggestions. As a friend, Su Ming just needs to do his best. The one who really gained was the little fool Xi and Linlet. Su Ming spent all his free time these 2 days reading various film reviews and copywriting she had written before, and gained a lot. Strictly speaking, Su Ming is not a professional filmmaker. Let him write a script and shoot a movie by himself. It may not be a good one, but the most basic appreciation level is still there, and he can tell good from bad. He was a little worried before, whether it was a bit hasty to let Xi and Linla preside over a department, but after reading more than a dozen copywritings, Su Ming was basically sure that this decision was not hasty, but rather late. If Xi and Linla had been allowed to participate in the film discussion and review earlier, perhaps the box office of the previous Horror Zoo could have been even higher, or even a big hit. Trucks coming from the city broke the tranquility of the zoo. Under the care of the national, provincial, and municipal governments, and with the full investment of Su Ming's funds, the only road from the zoo to the Orgrimmar Reserve in the Kinling Mountains was finally repaired. From then on, the animals in the reserve would no longer lack food and have to kill each other. Fruits and vegetables would be regularly delivered to the edge of the reserve through this road, and then the 2 pandas would send their men to pick them up. When Su Ming first made this decision, he was a little hesitant. It sounds beautiful for humans to deliver food to animals to prevent them from killing each other, but this obviously violates the laws of nature. Human interference in the food chain may not be a good thing for animals. But soon, he found that he was overthinking. The animals near the Orgrimmar Reserve, led by the panda, are no longer wild animals in the ordinary sense. These guys are smarter, more organized and disciplined, just like a biological group that is rapidly evolving into intelligent creatures. Due to the emergence of friends of animals, the animals in Orgrimmar and its vicinity, like the animals in the zoo, have begun to evolve. We can no longer look at them with the old eyes and methods of wild animals. After thinking this through, Su Ming no longer had any psychological barriers and directly reported to the city. There are thousands of animals following the panda couple in the city of Orgrimmar, most of which are herbivores. With Orgrimmar as the core, the surrounding forces radiate up to 40 to 50 kilometers, affecting and sheltering tens of thousands of animals, and more animals are constantly joining the group from all over the Kinling Mountains every day. With so many animals, relying only on the zoo, or simply relying on Su Ming's financial resources, even if Su Ming can afford to raise them, he will vomit 3 liters of blood. If Su Ming is left to support everything, the newly born Daowen group will be burdened with a heavy financial burden, and there will be no return in a short period of time, which will completely exhaust the cash flow of Daowen group and greatly restrict the development of the group. But if the government invests everything, or attracts investment, and allows other companies to participate, let alone whether there are companies willing to spend this money, even if there are companies to pay, it will inevitably disperse the influence and control of Daowen Group on the reserve. Orgrimmar and the reserve are completely built bit by the 2 pandas. Su Ming is unwilling and worried to hand it over to others to manage. It is equivalent to making wedding clothes for others. Therefore, a sustainable development method must be thought of. Su Ming, a man with a lot of tricks in his mind, pondered in the waterside pavilion all night, and actually came up with a solution for him. The next afternoon, a report was delivered to Wang Jianshi's desk. Seeing the 2 words poverty alleviation at the beginning of the report, Wang Jianshi's eyes lit up. He is in charge of the economic construction area of Yangchuan City. If it is broken down specifically, there are 3 main tasks. Cultivate a group of local influential large enterprises to drive the development of local high-end economy, this is the first. Upgrade and transform Yangchuan enterprises to ensure the sustainable development of Yangchuan economy. The last one is poverty alleviation. All citizens should enjoy the fruits of socialist construction. Economic construction is not just to make some people rich first, but also to improve the living standards of some people at the bottom of society. None of these 3 tasks is so easy to do. If you want to say what gives Wang Jianxi the most headache, it is actually poverty alleviation. Although Yangchuan City is not a first-tier city, it is at least a first-class city in the province that can compete with the provincial capital Jiangjan City. There is no shortage of foreign capital injection and investment opportunities. But for many years, Yangchuan City has a group of poor households that cannot be solved. Rely on mountains to eat mountains, rely on water to eat water. In turn, mountains and rivers have become obstacles to economic development. No matter how difficult the lives of residents in modern cities are, there is still a certain gap from the so-called poverty. Because it is backed by the Kinling Mountains and the city borders the edge of the Kinling Mountains, a small part of the entire city of Yangchuan is mountainous. The citizens in this area actually live in the mountains or at the foot of the mountains. The poor households in Yangchuan City are mainly concentrated in the mountain residents on the edge of the Kinling Mountains. These people have made a living by planting and hunting since their ancestors. After entering modern society, some of them moved into the city, and the rest still stayed in the mountains, mainly engaged in various types of planting. The climate and soil in the Kinling region are very suitable for the growth of crops, vegetables, fruits, and melons, so it is not difficult for these people to survive. However, in the same way, in the cities near the Kinling Mountains, because they are too suitable for the development of planting, crops and fruits and vegetables cannot be sold at a high price. In the peak season, there will even be large areas of fruit rotting in the forest. Therefore, These mountain city residents who hold urban household registration but live in the mountains, who can eat enough but cannot make money, have become a long-standing problem in Yangchuan City for many years. According to the annual statistics of urban residents' income, the average annual income of these people is at the bottom, dragging down the city's economy. The municipal governments of all previous periods have spent a lot of energy to solve this problem, attracting investment, collectively setting up factories. They have thought of one method after another, but none of them worked. The municipal government has good intentions, but the people feel that their lives are not bad. Although they have no money, they are very comfortable and don't want to worry about anything. Due to different attitudes towards life, the mountain people are willing to live a simple life, but in the eyes of the municipal government, the overall data has dragged down the whole city, and it feels like a piece of mud that cannot be helped. Unless you give money directly, people will not bother to pay attention to you when you go to help the poor. This opinion letter is specifically aimed at the poverty problem of residents in this mountainous area. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 699. The difficulties of poverty alleviation work are mainly concentrated in two aspects. The first is to establish a sustainable industry. The government has money, but poverty alleviation is by no means based on simple and crude giving money. No matter how poor Yangchuan City is, it can still get tens of millions of grants. In fact, the city has special funds for poverty alleviation every year. The problem lies in how to use this money well, so that poor households can really find an effective long-term solution to provide support for poor households and help them get rich themselves, or even if they cannot get rich, they must get out of poverty. If it is simply giving money, this year's per capita income seems to have increased. Then what about next year? What about the year after? Not only is it a bottomless hole in finance, but it may also be counterproductive, making the recipients lazy and developing the bad habit of being lazy. The second difficulty is universal benefit. In the poverty alleviation work, such a helpless situation often occurs. Poverty alleviation has achieved results and the per capita income has increased, but only a few people have benefited. A very small number of poor households have made a lot of money from the policy, while most people are still poor. The investment in poverty alleviation has not been truly popularized, but has widened the gap between the rich and the poor. Such a situation has occurred in a poor county under Jiangjin City. The average annual income of 8,000 poor households has increased from 8,000 in the previous year to 25,000, while the number of poor households has only dropped from 8,000 to 6,500. In other words, although it seems that poverty has been lifted from the average data, in fact, the vast majority of poor households are still struggling to make ends meet, and the national poverty alleviation policies and investments have been taken advantage of by a few people. Wang Jianxi has not been the deputy mayor in charge of the economy for a long time. Although he has a clear understanding of the difficulty of poverty alleviation work, he does not have many effective methods for the time being. In his performance evaluation, poverty alleviation is a hard indicator. Not only must the average income of poor households reach the poverty alleviation line, but the number of poor households must also be reduced. He was having a headache about this matter, and Su Ming's report was like timely rain, providing a good idea. In fact, Su Ming's method is very simple and not unusual. Enterprises and the government work together. The government provides policies and funds to support enterprises, and enterprises incorporate poor households into the production and sales chain, solving poverty problems in operations. Specifically, Daowen Tourism Company, which is responsible for the protection and tourism of Daowen Group and Orgrimmar Reserve, is responsible for purchasing all fruits, vegetables, and seedlings planted by poor mountain residents in Yangchuan City at market prices every year. Part of them are supplied to animals in the reserve, and the other part can be supplied to Dashan wine industry as raw materials for production. If purchased at market prices, it will be a heavy burden for enterprises. Therefore, the government gives enterprises financial subsidies and policy preferences. In terms of finance, a part of the annual poverty alleviation funds is drawn out to directly subsidize enterprises according to the proportion of the purchase price. For example, if a travel company buys 100 yuan from fruit farmers, the government will subsidize the company 50 yuan. Of course, the specific subsidy ratio cannot be so high and needs to be discussed and determined. In terms of policy, it is mainly inclined towards Dashan liquor industry, including a series of support policies including tax reduction and exemption, and Dashan liquor industry is designated as a key construction project of Yangchuan City's liquor industry. Since there are no other large-scale wineries in Yangchuan City, Dashan liquor industry is equivalent to Yangchuan City's city wine in a sense. There are several advantages in this way. The travel company can meet the food needs of animals in the reserve without being dragged down by huge expenses. Although the travel company and Dashan liquor industry belong to Suming's industry, they are separated in finance. Dashan liquor industry has to pay for purchasing fruit grains from the travel company. In fact, relying on government subsidies and Dashan liquor industry's purchase costs, the travel company hardly has to pay. As for the winery, it is originally to purchase raw materials for brewing. In the initial stage, Suming planned to plant in the 3 peach gardens in the back mountain to provide raw materials for the winery. But this is not realistic at all. The 3 dowans in the back mountain have limited areas, and it is unlikely to plant on a large scale. The fruits and grains grown are not enough to supply the needs of the winery. Moreover, the main purpose of the 3 dowans is tourism. The layout and planning are all for tourism services, and it is impossible to plant all of them. After tourism is developed, the various types of pure natural, pollution-free and pollution-free fruit crops on the mountain are in short supply for tourists. Where can there be extra ones for the winery? The same product, with the sign of Daowen, is sold to tourists, and it is used as raw materials for the winery. The income is very different. Therefore, the raw materials for brewing in Dashan wine industry can only be purchased in local and foreign markets. In the eyes of outsiders, the reason why Dashan wine is different from others is not only because of the unique brewing method of monkey brewing, but also because of the careful selection of raw materials. In fact, the main reason is that only Suming knows, it is Tai Sui water. Therefore, it doesn't matter where the raw materials are bought from. The kindling area is suitable for the growth of various crops and plants, and the quality of the grains and fruits grown by the mountain people is not bad. Buying from local places also saves shipping costs. Coupled with tax reduction and exemption policies, Dashan wine industry can reduce expenses and expand its scale to a certain extent. For poor households, it goes without saying that their lives are still the same as before. Every year, the things they grow are guaranteed to be reimbursed, and they are purchased at their doorsteps. They don't have to worry about anything extra. As long as they are not too lazy, they can just sit and wait to count the money at the end of the year. In the eyes of the government, this poverty alleviation fund is worth spending, and they are willing to give policies, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, that is, finding an effective and long-term way to get rich for poor households, and at the same time supporting local enterprises, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. In Suming's eyes, it is not so simple to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The travel company, the winery, the government, and the poor households all benefit, which is simply killing n birds with 1 stone. Of course, the premise of all this is based on the good operation of Dashan wine industry and the large amount of various fruit crops needed by the protected area every year. In other words, if this report is reviewed and approved by the municipal government, the importance of Suming and his several companies and Yangchuan City will have another leap. Wang Jianxi read the report carefully 3 times, picked out a few places where the wording was not appropriate and the opinions were still immature, asked the secretary to make some modifications, and then personally found several relevant leaders in the city. After only a simple meeting, the conclusion came out: agree to the report plan of Darwin Tourism Company, implement it as soon as possible, and strive to see initial results by the end of this year, reducing more than 50% of poor households. For an enterprise with excellent performance and a sense of social responsibility, its support for the local government and the improvement of the living standards of the local people is far more than just about taxation. In my opinion, we should provide more support and help to Darwin and entrepreneurs like Comrade Su Ming. At the end of the meeting, the city's top leader named and praised the company. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 700. A winding road extends from the entrance of the back mountain of the zoo to the depths of the Kinling Mountains. Between the two cliffs, there is a small road that is only 7 or 8 meters wide. Looking down from the sky, this road, which is not narrow, is like a thin line appearing in the mountains. A temporary xiongguan lies across the only road into the reserve, tightly guarding the passage between the two cliffs. A row of trucks carrying fruits and vegetables drove here and slowly stopped. The driver of the front truck came to the pass for the first time. Looking at the big sign of Liangjiguan hanging on the pass, his eyes widened. Above the checkpoint made of large bluestone, 2 flags fluttered in the wind, one red and the other blue, with the heads of 2 pandas printed on them. Except for the color, the 2 panda heads are almost the same, but they are not ordinary pandas. They have ferocious and majestic faces, revealing long fangs, and look like the ancestor pandas. On top of the pass, a row of baboons stood like soldiers, holding sharpened sticks in their hands, staring down at the trucks below. 2 falcons stood on the beacon tower at the top of the pass, ready to flap their wings and fly away to report the news at any time. The whole painting style is very magical, as if you have suddenly entered a mythical world of mountain spirits and water monsters. The truck driver who came here for the first time had his eyes wide open, and almost got excited and hit the thick wall of the city gate without controlling the accelerator. That's not a joke. Don't think that this is built completely according to the ancient city gate. It's very simple. It looks like some big stones are simply piled together, but there are too many and too big stones. Even a big truck will not be able to get away with it. The escort looked like he was used to it. He took out a cigarette and passed it to the driver, saying in a senior tone, "Is this your first time here?" Yes, the driver took the cigarette and lit it for the escort. "Brother Zhang, what the hell is this place? Didn't they say they were delivering food to the reserve? Why is it like they are filming a TV show? Are those monkeys alive? What is this 2 worlds pass? Isn't it from Journey to the West?" "Of course it is," the escort laughed. "I was also shocked when I first came here. This place is the Yangchuan City Animal Park. The zoo is managed by the owner. Have you been to Yangchuan Zoo? The animals there are like spirits, and they are all specially trained. This place is no exception. I heard that the cities in the reserve were built by the animals themselves. Isn't it amazing? As for the name of Liangjiguan, it is a bit particular. I heard that it means that after passing this pass, it is a different world from human society. Outside the pass, humans are in charge, and inside the pass, animals are in charge. So cool." The driver had an expression of "I am not well educated, so don't lie to me." "Hee, you will know later." "Wait, someone will come to pick up the goods soon," the escort said mysteriously. "Receiving goods?" The driver was stunned. Damn, sending some fruits, making it so mysterious, like doing a secret deal, and receiving goods. After sitting in the car for a few minutes, the big monkeys on the city gate did not seem to have any intention of hurting anyone, so the driver took out his mobile phone and took a lot of photos of the city gate and the baboons on it. He also jumped out of the car and took a selfie with his backhand. At this moment, The noose of the city gate made a creaking sound, and the gate was slowly lifted up. The driver was startled and rushed back to the driver's seat. A team of animals with strong load-bearing capacity came out of the city gate, including wild horses, antelopes, and the most were wild boars, and even a Bactrian camel and a North American bison. Two lure people carrying rifles followed the team out expressionlessly. The escort jumped out of the car familiarly and handed over to the lure people in charge of patrolling the mountains. Baskets of food were unloaded from the car and placed on the backs of the pack animals. Everyone went back to their own homes and looked for their own mothers. After unloading the goods, the convoy turned around and followed the original route out of the mountain. Under the command of the lure people, the pack animal team re-entered the gate of the Two Worlds Pass and walked towards Orgrimmar with food on their backs. The creaking noose made two fat and strong black bears turn the huge wheel and operate the noose. The gate of the Two Worlds Pass slowly closed again, isolating the human world from the animal world again. A two-world pass is the only legal road. Su Ming's intention is to allow animals to accept human help, but resolutely not to be disturbed too much. The two-world pass isolates the two worlds, allowing animals to live and evolve quietly in the mountains. In the future, tourism will begin to develop gradually. The two-world pass is a checkpoint that effectively controls the number of tourists, and it is also the first attraction of the reserve. The animals in the reserve began to develop towards human society and evolve at a high speed, so we might as well follow their characteristics and go with the flow. In the future, the reserve will be built into a legendary world of gods and demons. Su Ming is a man of evil taste. He has even started planning whether to have a few characters like mountain kings and old monsters in the future protected area, and a few teams of small drill-wind minions. Yangchuan International Airport. Some members of the Daowin film and television delegation, who went abroad to Disney for inspection, arrived on time under the leadership of Li Wanting. After not seeing the young people in the inspection team for a while, Su Ming also clearly saw something called confidence on their faces, in addition to being exhausted. With more experience and knowledge, and with a broader vision and more worldly experience, one will naturally develop such a temperament. A group of newcomers who have just entered the film and television industry seized this rare opportunity and had a baptism in the world's top film hall. Among them, perhaps some people will soon fade from the halo of returning from overseas and return to mediocrity, but Su Ming also believes that there will inevitably be some people who will become a rising star because of this baptism. Mr. Su, do I look good? The little fairy Li Wanting was wearing a colorful and simple brand name. She turned in front of Su Ming like a jumping elf. Brand names are those things that look ordinary, but in the eyes of discerning people, they are absolutely unique. Su Ming can be regarded as discerning. He glanced at Li Wanting a few times and his eyelids twitched. Damn, the whole body is worth at least 200,000, maybe more. He rolled his eyes. Is it necessary to show off after returning to China? I know you are beautiful, but this is all the money of the old company. It is really painful to see. After seeing Nicolas Cage, wearing big sunglasses and big flowered shorts, walking out of the team, Su Ming's mood finally improved a little. From a close distance, the wrinkles on the uncle's face are several times more than those of a steamed bun, and his skin is definitely not as tender as the skin of a steamed bun. At most, it is a steamed bun, and it is a coarse-grained steamed bun without water, with pits and bumps. It seems that Cage's financial situation is indeed very bad. Generally, even if it is a third-tier star, there will be a large group of people around him when he goes out, such as assistants and nannies, but Cage is alone. Hi, Mr. Su, I heard that you have a magical zoo. Can you take me to see it? Unexpectedly, Cage's Chinese is actually quite good, at least Su Ming can understand it.